Okay, so welcome to today's lecture, and today we're going to build our first project, right? So, what we're going to do is that we are going to create a folder called Student Management, and then inside that folder, you're going to install your VNV, and then after installing your VNV, then you're going to activate it, right? After activating your VNV, then you're going to install, then you're going to install Django, right? And then after installing Django, you are going to install Django REST framework, right? I've already installed both Django and Django REST framework, and also what created and activated my virtual environment, right? So here we are going to start a project, and we're going to call it, and we're going to call our project config, right? Start project config, right? And then inside the student management, if you look inside that folder, we now have what config, which is going to be our project, right? So then we're going to change directory into config, right? And then inside config, that's where we're going to create what our app, and right, and the app we're going to call it students, right? So it's going to be python manage.py start app students, right? Then if you check under my config, and I have what students, right? So the config folder, right, it represents the Django project configuration, and the students, and this students folder represents one feature or area of the application. So that separation becomes very important as our applications grow, right? So remember that when you create an app, you need to register it, right? So we're going to open the config folder, going to settings.py, and then inside settings.py, right, we're going to add rest underscore framework, right, and also add students, right, because that's the app that we created, right? So now that we have added our apps, right, the next thing that we need to do is go to our models. We find our models inside our app. This is going to be students, so our app is going to be students. So we're going to go to models.py. This is where we're going to create our models, right? So before you create your models, you should have an ERD diagram just to know what to expect from the type of data your models are the type of data that your models need to have, right? But as of now, I haven't taught you guys about ERD diagrams, so we're going to look at that later. So for right now, you just think, okay, my project is supposed to take student names. I need the names, age, etc., right? So for now, we're just going to create our model called class student models dot model, right? And then name equals to models dot Charfield, right? And then max underscore length equals to 100. Then we take the age equals to models dot positive integer field, right? And then we take course equals to another models dot char field max underscore length length equals to 100 as well, right? And then we take city equals to models dot char field, right? And then we're going to take max underscore length equals to 100, right? Then we are also going to have created it, right? Right, so created it is going to be models dot date time field, right? Auto now auto underscore now is auto underscore now add is equals to true, so that whenever we create whenever we save data to the model, we can get the time, the date, whenever that data was created, right? Then we're going to have a function, an str function, def str, and it takes just self as a parameter, and then return self dot name. It just so this function only returns what? The student's name only, right? So what this function does, right, it just gives a readable representation of the student, right? So instead of Django showing something like, let's say, student object, right, it would display like, let's say, John, if the student's name is John. This is basically what the str method does. It just gives a readable representation of the student. If we don't provide this, then Python is just going to say student object depending on the class name of your model, right? So always remember that creating a model class does not yet create the database table. Right now we have created the table in Python, right? Now Django needs to convert that model definition into a real database structure, right? Remember that after creating your modules, you need to run python manage.py, right? Make migrations. Oh, sorry, made a mistake there. It's python manage.py make migrations, right? Then after doing this, it's going to be python manage.py migrate, right? Then if you look at inside our project config, we now have what? db.sqlite3, right? So whenever we run our system and we save data, the data is going to be saved into our SQLite3 database, right? So whenever you modify the models or you create new models, you need to run you need to make migrations, then you need to migrate, then the database structure will be updated, right? So now that we have created our models and we have updated them, right, we then need, before we can create our views, right, we need to first create what? Serializers inside our students app. So since Python doesn't create the file for us, we need to create our own serializers.py, right? And inside serializers.py, we need to import what? We need to import serializers from REST framework, right? And then we also need to import what? Our model, right? So from the models we need to import what? Student. Yes, Mr. Achanga.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Kuman.
Yes, how are you?
Okay, is this a new lecture or we are repeating last two?
No, here we're just creating a project from scratch. No writing, deleting, modifying it. We're creating a project.
That is the first file that you opened this evening.
Yes, no, we started from creating the project, from creating the
What's the
folder,
name?
installing the virtual environment, installing Django, etc. We started from the beginning.
Okay, but we discussed about this before, is it?
That's correct. So here I'm just
Okay.
refreshing your minds because tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday, we're not having a lecture. You guys are going to be building your own projects.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, I understand
Okay.
now.
So,
It's okay.
so I'm just taking you guys step by step to know what you're supposed to do first. Yes, our new, it's a new folder, student management. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, this one, student
Okay.
management.
Oh,
But the project name, I still named it config. When you're doing your own project, you can name it whatever you want.
okay. So you just created the project. I just wanted to.
Remember that you create the
Is
project
it?
name, then you create the app.
Uh-huh.
After creating the app,
Uh-huh.
you go to settings.py, you installed apps. From that, you go to
Sorry.
modules. From that, we are now on serializers.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to create out our serializer. Yes, Mr. Dubs.
On that, I also think the link replace. How about the URL? We simply skip that part since we did it the last time. I don't know.
We're still going to get there. We
Oh, we are
haven't
done
reached.
there.
Yes, we
Okay.
haven't created any views.
Correct, correct.
Alright. So we're going to create what? Our serializers, right? So we're going to have what? It's going to be in a class called student serializer. Right? And we're going to use serializers dot model serializer. Right? And we're going to class meta, right? Model is equals to our student model, right? And then the fields that are going to serialize, it's going to be all of the fields, right? Last time we didn't do, or we didn't use all, we named all of our fields one by one. If you want to serialize all of the fields, you can just use underscore underscore all underscore underscore, right? And also going to have read only fields, right? That are going to be id and created it, right? So now that we have created what our serializer, right, we're going to go to our app students, right, and we're going to look for views.py, right? Then I'll go inside views.py. That's where we create what? Our views. right? So inside views.py, we are going to remove this. So saying going from rest underscore framework dot decorators, right? Import API view from rest underscore framework dot response, import response, right? From rest underscore framework import status, right? Then from dot models, right? Import what? Our model, which is what? Student, right? Then from dot serializers, import student serializer, right? Mr. Django, do you have a question?
No, it's okay. I had gone out because of the network.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Then we're going to have at API view, right? Open bracket, and then open square bracket, and then inside that we're going to have what? Get end post, to indicate that our view is going to allow both get and post requests, right? So our view is going to be called student underscore list, right? And it's going to take a parameter called request, right? So now if request dot method is equals if request dot method is equal to a get request, right? So it's going to be students. Here are now getting what? All of the students, right? Students dot objects
Hello,
dot
I'm in.
all, right? So you notice that we never talked about this student dot objects dot all, right? So whenever you create a project, that's when you're going to learn new things, how to get things from the database, right? How to modify certain things. That's how you get to learn them. So when you see so student is what? Is the name of our model, right? Student, and then dot objects dot all. This just means get every object, get everything that's inside what? The student model. So all of the students, their names, age, course, city, created age, they're all going to be what? We are going to get all of them, right? So you're also going to have course equals to request dot get course, right? So you're going to have if course, right, students equals to students dot filter course underscore, right? I exact, right, equals course, right? Then we're going to now serialize our data, right? Serializer equals to the student serializer that we created inside serializers.py. We're going to serialize what? Students, right? Many equals to true, right? So and we're going to return our response. That's going to be serializer dot data, right? So here then we're going to have another serializer, right, equals to student, the student what serializer, and then we're going to get data equals to request dot data, right? So serializer dot is underscore valid, if not raise exception, right, equals to true, right? Right. Then we're going to have serializer dot save, right? Then we're going to return response serializer dot data, right? We're going to return what serializer dot data, status is equals to status dot http. If you notice that Python is going to give you all of these what http requests that you can use, but you need to know which one you're supposed to use and when. So I'm going to cover all of these http requests as we go, right? So for now we're going to use what 201 because we just what created new info, right? And then for this one we're going to use status equals to status dot http, and we're going to use what 200, right? So here our API gets two only allows two requests. It's either a get request or a post request, right? So now whenever we call our API, our view, right, it's going to check is the request a method a get. It's going to know by default when you're sending it, right? Is it a get method or a post method? So if it's not a get, then it will assume by default that it's a post method. Then it will save the student in the database, right? So if it's a get method, then this is going to be triggered what at first, right? If we don't send it as a get method, then it's going to trigger line 23, 25, 27, and 29, right? So this student dot object dot all, this is Django's ORM, right? This is just Django's ORM, object relational mapper, right? So Python does it for what? For us, right? And then on this one, right, course equals to request dot get dot what dot course, right? We just check for a query parameter, right? So here we're just checking what for a query parameter on what on the course that the student is what is doing, right? And then we have this one, students dot filter course underscore underscore I exact equals course, right? So the I exact part, right, it just it means case sensitive matching, right? So in this scenario, this word Python and this word Python, they are going to be the same because of what I exact. So Python is going to see them as what one words. Remember when we were learning basic Python, we said that these two can be what different words, right? But with I exact, this becomes what the same words because it's what is the same name. Okay, right? So then we just then we what we serialize what our students data, and then we return what the response, right? And then with many equals to true, right? So because we're serializing multiple student objects, right, we're serializing what multiple student objects here, we're serializing all of them, even if you name them one by one, as long as you are serializing multiple objects, you're supposed to use what many is equals to true, unless you're only serializing one object, right? And then with the post request, we first serialize the data, then we check if the data is valid. If the data is valid, we save the data. If the data is not valid, we just raise an exception equals to true, right? So if the data is valid, we just return response with the data, with the student's data and the http status, right? So now, so here we created our get, post, our get and post views, right? So we need to also what create our URLs, right? So we're going to go to we don't have what our urls.py, so we need to what to create them urls.py inside our app, right? This is where we're going to create what our urls, right, for this view student list, right? So right, so now that you've created what students.urls, then we're going to create what our urls, right? So we're going to say from Django dot urls import path, right? Then we say from dot import our views, right? Then also we are going to create our view for student list, right? Then we're going to say url patterns equals to, right, path, right, students with the slash, right, views dot student list, right? Then we now have to open our config, then we go to urls.py, right? Then you can delete this information, right? And then here next to path, you just include what you just also import include, right? Then inside the url dot patterns, our url patterns, right? Then you then say path slash, right? This time we're not going to leave this part blank, we're just going to say API slash comma include students, no, include, right, students dot urls, right? So just like that, we have created our project, right? So for this one, I'm going to add one more view, right? Then let's just say add API underscore view, right? are going to have get, are going to have put, right, and are going to have delete, right, and are going to call it student underscore detail, and it's going to take what request and the student ID, right. So here are going to use the try block, right. So I'm going to say try student is equals to student dot student dot objects dot get, right, ID equals to student ID, right, equals to student ID, right, except student dot does not exist, right. Return, are going to return a response with an error message, right. We're just going to call our message detail. What can you say? Okay, say student does not exist, right. And then the status is going to be status dot http underscore 404, right, http underscore 404, right. Then we're going to let me just space this out, there we go. Then if request dot method, right, is equals to get, if request dot method is equals to get, we're going to create a serializer equals to student serializer, and then we're going to serialize our student variable, right. Then we just return our response serializer dot data, right. We just return what the student data. Then our status equals to status dot http, are going to use that 200, okay, right. Then you are going to have another if request dot method, right, is equals to, here we did get, so we're going to do what put, right. If the request dot method equals to put, we first serialize our data equals to student serializer, right, and then I'm still going to use the same variable student, right, and then data is equals to request dot data. Remember that whenever you call an API and you send data to the API, you can access that data using what request dot data. So request dot data accesses that data that you sent via the API, right. Right. So then we're going to have what serializer dot is valid, right. If it's valid, raise what exception equals to true, right. Then we have serializer dot save, right? Then we return our response, right? Serializer dot data, right? And here are going, let's just call our status equals to status dot h. Let's choose what? Okay, let's just use 200 again, right? Right. Then where's the serializer dot save? Okay, there it is. Then here are going to have there we go, right? Then here, right, if whenever we call this view and we don't specify the get or the put request method, our view is going to assume that this is what a delete, right? It's going to assume that it's a delete request, so it's going to delete what? The student, right? And after deleting the student, it's just going to return what? A response, right? And the response is going to just be a status equals to status dot http 204, right? Just no content, to show that we've deleted the what? The student, and there's nothing to show, right? So what this means, if except student does not exist, if you remember when we talked about try and except, right, this one is triggered if the student does not exist. When we talked about the try except block, we talked about index error, indentation error, etc, right? When you're working with the databases, we don't choose those type of errors. They have their own errors. The database has its own errors, right? So if you're working with reading data from a database, right, whether it's names, phone numbers, or whatever, always use a try and except block, so that we can have what? This except block dash, we can have dash does not exist, right? So because here is student equals student dot objects dot get id student id, this is going to get the student based on the student id. If the student doesn't exist, then this except block is going to be executed because the student does not exist. Then the API will send what? A user friendly error instead of what? Our program crashing, right? And it sends what? A proper API behavior, a status dot http 404. I'm sure you guys have come across 404 a lot of times, whether it's post or jokes. So 404 just says whatever you're looking for, it wasn't found, it doesn't exist, right? So I want us to also then modify what? Our URLs, right? So I'm going to create another one, path, right? Or going to call it student, going to call it students, right, slash, right, you're going to slash int, right, student underscore id, right, forward slash, right. Then we're going to create another one, right? Oh no, I forgot this one. It's supposed to be views dot student detail, right? So here we have what? Two URLs and two views, In the first views, it does the get request and the post request. In the second view, does what? Get request, put request, and delete request. So one view, multiple what? One view that can do what? Multiple tasks, right? Instead of creating multiple different views. Right, but in larger systems, it's best that you create a get view, you then create a put view, then you create a delete view. But for this, but for now, we're just going to learn on how to make what a view handle multiple tasks, right? So this is our project for today. So I'm not going to test it. I'll try and zip the code and send it to you guys. Then you can then download it on your laptops and then test out the code for you. The reason why I don't want to test out the code for you, I want to see if you guys are going to be able to send out the necessary information and find the correct URL route. Considering here we have students and here we also have admin, we have API, right? So I just want to see what you guys are going to do, how you're going to handle the situation, right? So any questions? Yes, Mr. Django.
You said you're not going to be having a lesson tomorrow.
Yes, Tuesday and Wednesday won't have a lesson. I want to give you guys 2 days to create your own project. So I'm going to just give you what a rundown of what the project is supposed to be.
Okay, are we creating a project from this? Are we making a continuation of what we learned today, or we are starting our own project from scratch?
Yeah, starting your own project from scratch.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay. Okay, good. So any question? Yes, Mr. Dupes.
Okay, so when we are doing our own project, we set a new direction, right? So we set like we set elements which is an existing project like this one. We set a new like the data environments. I create a new one the next basis. I can always start another direction, maybe under. Let's say maybe under. But when you face Django there, I start a new one, then create different projects.
No, you're going to start a new one from scratch, from creating the very first folder, installing Django, and also all of and creating VNV, etc.
Okay. So that was
Alright. So, any question? Okay, then if there aren't any questions, then that's it for the lecture, and I'll see you guys on Thursday. So if you have any challenges whilst creating the project, feel free to get in touch with me, and I'll be able to guide you on how you can handle the situation. I won't tell you the answer directly. I'll just guide you and give you a direction that you can take.